Good evening, everyone. Call to order the October 28th, 2019 meeting of the Victoria City Council. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, a couple of quick announcements. First, there's two, and Dana, jump in if I get this wrong, but there's two budget workshops the council will be having, both here in the council chambers. Both start at 5:30. First one's November 12th. The second one is November 25th. Anything else on that, Dana? The other announcement then that we have is the yard waste that the council went ahead and approved is going to be November 2nd and November 3rd, and that's Saturday and Sunday, and it's from 10 to 4. And didn't you want to remind people, Judy, about traffic comes in off of 5?
Yes, it does come off 5.
Okay. So again, November 2nd and 3rd, we're going to do that test for yard waste, Victoria residents only, 10 to 4. And that's all the announcements. At that point, let's move on to the open forum. I've got one slip. Jen?
Hello, Council. Jen Mulvihill, 5720 Marsh Lake Road here in Victoria. I'm back again. Well, I was here 2 weeks ago. I spoke at the October 14th meeting regarding my concerns about the referendum in District 112 and why I was going to be voting no. And after that meeting, I was told that one of my neighbors, a neighbor who I thought was a really good friend, had been attacking me to others and on social media and stated that I didn't have the right in this venue to speak. And so I love my neighbors and I love the people in this community. And the fact that my voicing my opinion caused such a strong reaction, I thought I would just come back and clarify who I am and what my background is and why the voice of every single member of our community really does matter. So first of all, I'm a parent. I'm a mother to 5 children, 4 of which are school-aged. And in our household, we choose to homeschool our children, but that does not mean that our family is separate from the workings of District 112. In fact, we are active in the community. We interact with the staff at the district office in person throughout the year, and we hold those workers, those people, in very high regard. We personally know and we have relationships with district teachers, administrators, and students. And contrary to some things that have been said, we have set foot in district buildings, even though we homeschool. We do not live under a rock. In fact, the opposite is true. And as I said, and I quote myself at the last council meeting, we are voting no, not because we don't love our teachers and our schools and our administrators and the children, but because it isn't needed and the money from the referendum will be used to fund the district's equity agenda. Second, I am a teacher. Prior to having kids, I was a proud public school teacher. I loved teaching in the public school. I hold the public schools in high regard, and I understand the long hours, the low pay, and the sacrifices that our teachers make. I do not take being a teacher lightly, and I'm glad to still have the opportunity to teach in our community. I understand the workings of the public school. I understand how budgets are set and how they are spent. I understand the detailed workings, and most importantly, I understand the meaning of the word equity and how equity is applied across multiple subject areas. And it's because of my background and my understanding of educational philosophy that I am voting no. So I'm a taxpayer in District 112. I'm a concerned parent, and I welcome and I respect the personal beliefs of everyone in our community. I'm not upset or angered by people who choose to vote yes for the referendum and vote yes for the equity agenda if that's their personal conviction. And I would just ask that the same respect be shown for my personal convictions in our community. So it's a variety of backgrounds and experiences that make this place a wonderful place to live. And it's why we all call it home. And so my ask would be to encourage everyone just to get out and vote on November 5th. And let's just love and encourage one another within the community. Thank you.
Thank you
you.
very much. Is there anybody else that would like to address the council? Okay. If you pass that down to Dana, please. Agenda, can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Thank you. Second, please.
Second?
Discussion, any changes? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The agenda is adopted. Consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Second.
Second?
Discussion. Anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda? People in the audience? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Consent agenda is adopted unanimously. That was quick. Regular agenda item 7.1, Rolling Hills sketch plan. Paul, I believe this is yours.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Today before you, you have a sketch plan for consideration. We are not asking for any decisions to be made today, but rather critical comment and feedback on this proposal so that we can produce the best preliminary plat possible once it comes to your comes before you. The applicant today is Pulte Homes. A little bit of background on the project. The subject property is currently undeveloped and the applicant is requesting to rezone the property from agricultural to a planned use development. The 2040 comprehensive plan guides this area as low and medium density residential and is consistent with that plan. The property is currently located in Laketown Township and will need to be annexed. The City Council directed staff in February to start that process, and we've been continuing that process. The site is bounded on the north by the Schmid Farmstead, located to the north here on this map, to the west by Marsh Lake Hunt Club, to the east by the City of Chaska, guided as Greenbelt, and to the south by property proposed to be developed in the near future. The applicant is proposing 108 single-family lots, 64 feet in width, 70 single-family lots, 56 feet in width, and 106 town row homes. This proposed density falls within the 2040 comprehensive plan. Wetlands are to be preserved, and a significant effort is to be made to preserve large stands of trees along critical corridors, which include steep slopes. This is located near the park in the plan shown at the end of the presentation. A little more background. The residential streets for this area will allow public access and parking on both sides of the street. Collectors will discourage private access and restrict on-street parking. Staff is working to develop what's called a neighborhood collector hybrid. What this will do is it'll limit public access, but allow some, and also allow some on-street parking. This is for lower impact areas. Connections for sewer and water will also be managed and to be proposed with the preliminary plat. Additional connections for storm sewer will be guided through the Carver County Watershed Management Organization, or the CCWMO, and therefore stormwater ponding will have to meet all Carver County city standards and additional other jurisdictions. Trails are also proposed along the Victoria Drive County Road 11, the near future neighborhood collector street, and to the centrally located park. Sidewalks are proposed throughout the townhome sites and on one side of the single-family streets, preferably to the north. One neighborhood park will serve both the Rolling Hills neighborhood and the neighborhood to the south. It'll be large and substantial and have connections that tie both neighborhoods together. The neighborhood park is designed to be an intense recreational activities such as field games, play court games, skating, and open play areas. For today, the Planning Commission gave feedback on this particular project on October 15th, 2019. The Commission had the following comments. They would like to see additional renderings and illustrations for the proposed buildings in context with the lot size. They would like to see additional and enhanced connections to the proposed park from multifamily and single-family neighborhoods where feasible. And would like more information and analysis about traffic conditions throughout the proposed development and to County Road 11. Staff also has additional recommendations, specifically adhering to setbacks of 25 feet for front yard, 30 feet rear, and 8 to the side, moving sidewalks to the north where feasible, and also a provision for architectural plans to be proposed for townhomes before preliminary plat. For this application, we're not looking for any decision to be made, but rather for critical feedback to make the best plan possible. This is a map showing the proposed development. The original design had a large singular road going down to these cul-de-sacs. The applicant has made provisions to add connections here and here in order to increase circulation throughout the development. And that was one of the major considerations of both staff and also the Planning Commission. And with that, we do have the applicant here and present to take any questions you may have. And with that, I thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to talk a little bit about the trees. Dana and I have been looking at some of the other developments and some of the problems. I think you're aware of where trees were supposed to be preserved and they weren't preserved. And then what options the city has if they're not preserved. So I think some of this is going to result in ordinance changes where we can enforce some of this. Some of it may come back to how we write our development agreements. And all that leads up to, as far as this development, how do we know that we can enforce the tree preservation that we'd like to see and make sure that trees that should be preserved actually end up being preserved?
Well, I think that would be a top priority for our consideration and continued conversations. Obviously, we do have our current ordinance doesn't have the teeth, I think, that would be preferable or even necessary in order to save these trees. I think that's a high consideration during that development process, that when we do this PUD, we have a lot of flexibility to make sure those trees are protected and that provisions are made. I'm not particular about the language we could use. We can work through that and make sure that's provided to you before or during the preliminary plat process. I think that's a high concern for staff as well.
This looks fine. I'm just want to make sure that the city has recourse, that if this plan isn't followed or if mistakes happen, we've got something that we can do to recover, if you will. Because I think the lessons learned in some prior developments is when we went back and looked, there's questions about what options we have on those particular developments, right? I want to avoid that mistake going in here. So is there language that we can put into the development agreement that protects the city until such time? And maybe this, Bob, this is maybe better suited for you. Given the fact that we know we're going to start reviewing and probably adjusting ordinances in the first quarter, that doesn't really solve the issue for this. So Bob, is there something that we can do from the development agreement in this vein, if you will? Go ahead.
Yeah. So Mayor and Council, two thoughts come to mind. Just apart from this particular development, which is, as I understand it, going to be a planned unit development, driven development. Apart from that, in the abstract, something that the prior community development director and I were looking at was what is the scope of authority that the legislature has given to cities to preserve trees. And there's quite clear authority to preserve trees on certain sloped lands, and the authority is somewhat less clear on other lands. And so we were sort of in the process of working through that in a general sense. I guess my answer in a general sense is it would be easiest, I think, if the council would come to land upon a preferred policy. What is the council's policy preference about saving trees when it comes to development, and then staff can sort of work back from that toward what authority is there and what's the best way to implement that. So that's the generic answer. Then the specific answer to this development, which is a planned unit development, proposed development, is that, as council is aware, the exchange that happens for planned unit development is that developers get some relaxed zoning standards, some relaxed site standards in exchange for giving some public benefits through their development. And clearly one of the public developments that the council could ask for, that the city could demand as a condition of this kind of development, would be some tree preservation. So as to this particular development, yes, we could work into a development agreement tree preservation requirements. That's something I take it Paul's going to take a look at and bring back to you. And yes, that very clearly can be done here. But generically speaking, I think there's some work for the council to do on what direction you want to go, Jim.
Good. So let me, based on that, let me kind of add to my initial thoughts. I want to be fair to the developers, right? The idea here is not to make it so hard on the developers that it's an unfriendly environment. But at the same time, if we've got already existing ordinances, and I understand if they're not necessarily clear, what I'm trying to do is make sure that we get to a point where it's reasonable and fair, not only to the city, but to the developer. We're not driving costs out of control, but at the same time, we're preserving what we want to preserve to keep the community and keep those trees based on the lessons we've learned already where we've lost a lot of trees. And once they're gone, we can't get them back, if you will. So the council's not making a decision tonight, but let me put this point out to the council. I mean, we haven't had any time to look at a policy. These ordinances are going to come back. I don't want to ask the council to make a snap decision because we don't even have any of the preliminaries. But I'd like to ask the council's thoughts on whether or not we direct staff to look through and see if they can come to a reasonable accommodation for this PUD since we're not doing anything now, and then bring that back after they've had a chance to look at it, specifically bringing back to the council information specifically along the lines of this tree preservation. So council, your thoughts, comments on that, please?
Mr. Mayor, 3 to 6 months ago, didn't we change or enhance our tree preservation ordinance related to slopes?
We did. We have a steep slope ordinance.
Did
You can-
we integrate that with the tree ordinance?
Right, so that it's a part of our city code, which is steep slopes 18%. Wooded of significant trees are preserved. And so I think one of the issues that we came across was the definition between a significant tree and trees in general. And so it's one thing to say that, you have a willow and we'll just name another type of tree that's not in their preservation. It's still a part of a stand of trees, which is significant. And if they all die, and we thought that was going to be a part of this very nice vista, and they die, and all of a sudden we don't have the teeth because we have these strict definitions of what a tree is and what's a preference tree or a principled tree. I don't think that's the right approach necessarily. It should be, in my opinion, from a planning standpoint, it should be something that's a little more objective. Like, why are you saving this tree versus another tree? Is it because of the aesthetics of the stand of trees? Something to that nature. And so that's something we're going to have to take a look at.
I personally think the tree issue, the biggest thing is we have never done good inspections in the process. So we really never know if the trees have been removed, or if we do, it's too late. So that's in essence the problem. But I know the slope ordinance was updated,
Right.
and you were a part of it.
Right, towards the beginning part of that. I know on this map here we have what's called preserved wooded hillsides.
Yep.
And so we can see between the park and the development here, there's a very steep slope. And so this would be in effect what we would consider to be our steep slopes. Of course, this is very preliminary. I mean, this is sketch side, so we don't know exactly how steep those slopes are. We don't know. To some degree, we can do some analysis. But again, as we go through the preliminary process, we'll be able to actually analyze and use good data to figure that out.
So let me add a little context because I suspect that most of the people in Victoria aren't familiar with what happened, but there was a stand of trees that in the development that were supposed to be preserved, and then grading occurred, and what ended up happening is that entire stand of trees was flooded in like 4 or 5 feet of water. The entire stand of trees died. So that was what was supposed to be preserved, and at the end of the day, they're all dead. They're all cut down. So we ended up with a nice forested area that was very appealing to basically clear-cutting everything, right? And then as we looked at this and tried to say, okay, what happened? How did this occur? We found out through that process that the city doesn't necessarily have the teeth to go back and recoup any sort of meaningful fines or recover. And hence, that's part of my comments as far as I want to make sure that we avoid that until such time as we can clean up the definition of the tree. Yes, we passed the 18-degree slope. That didn't solve the problem. We're still having problems. And if the ordinances are not followed without the inspections per council member votes discussion, we can't do anything about it. And the fines that we can levy are frankly insignificant. It makes no difference. So I want to avoid that here, at the same time being fair to all of the parties. I don't want the landowner not to be able to sell their land because of something that's so restrictive. I don't want the developer to have to incur a bunch of unreasonable costs, but at the same time, we need to prevent, if we say we want to preserve the trees, we need to preserve the trees, right? And not just certain ones and then kill them and be done. So that provides, I think, at least for the people that aren't familiar with it, a little more context as to where my comments are coming from. Council, is it fair to say, let's make sure that we look at that particular issue and in the development agreement have something that can be brought forward by staff for us to look at to see if that can help protect us a little bit better going forward? Council?
Isn't that part of the process, the preliminary plat process, all of that gets decided through that process?
Well, like right here, they're saying that they're going to preserve these trees, and I have no reason to doubt that they're going to do exactly that. But what happens is when they get into it and these trees are taken down, right? After we've been told they're going to be preserved. That's basically, in essence, what happened before, right? And once it happens, we've got no recourse. I want to make sure that we have recourse.
Right.
Council, further discussion?
I'm curious about the plat. What's the timeline? Is this a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan? Can we hear from the builder? Developer?
I have some questions as well.
Name and address for the record, please.
Yes. Paul Hoyer, Pulte Homes, 7500 Flying Cloud Drive, Suite 670, Eden Prairie, Minnesota, 55344.
Wow. Can we get your birthday too?
No. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight and giving us feedback. I appreciate it. To answer your question, council member, so we would like to develop this property beginning next year, 2020, and it would be about a 4-year development build-out.
So you understand my comments. I'm not trying to stick this to you guys, right? I'm just trying to make sure that we're all in agreement going into this, what we're trying to see come out 4 years down the road here, right? And I don't have, I want to make absolutely clear to you that I don't believe you would do anything other than what you guys are proposing here. But, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And you weren't the developer, I don't want to label you with what happened elsewhere, but I do want to take that into effect as we move this thing forward here. So, if you have any thoughts, and again, unless the council objects, I'd like to get some teeth into that, so that you guys are happy, we're happy, and the city's got some protections going forward that we can preserve what makes sense.
Could I provide a little clarity?
Yeah,
here?
please.
I'm not trying to dissuade you from adding something. That's just fine. We'd be happy to work with you. It sounds like a very unusual circumstance. In my 30-year career, I haven't had a situation like that. Typically, a lot of engineering is done, and there's maximum slopes that you can grade, and everything's nailed down pretty well. There's a little bit of fuzziness, within a foot or two where you can save a tree or lose a tree. But typically, these things are approved plans, engineering as well as tree preservation plans, and everything in your development agreement always says we have to build things according to the approved plan. So you do have that teeth, and of course you have the nuclear option, which is withholding building permits, which I would never propose. You do, but my point is you always have plenty of leverage with your sureties, your development agreement, and the nuclear option. We don't yet know if these slopes make the 18%, but I want to tell you tonight, even if they don't, even if they're less than your steep slope ordinance, it is our plan to preserve those trees. It's the right thing to do. Slopes are harder to deal with, and we'd love nothing more than to have a beautiful low-lying area plus the slopes with woods.
Perfect. Go ahead.
I'm just looking at the map, and I just had some questions on this. Over here where we have the wet impact, you have numbers, I'm assuming, are going to be homes there. Am I correct?
Help me understand where you are.
The northwest corner, lots 20, 21, 19?
19, 18,
Northwest corner, okay.
right here.
Yep.
And I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 1 through 7. I see green. Are those trees or is that? What is
Yeah,
that?
so there's a number of different colors. So just to the north a little bit is blue, that's a pond, and I think that's
Yeah, I know
labeled.
that pond.
Just south of that is a funny color green, which is a wetland that we're preserving. And then just the south of that, where you've got lots, there are some woods underneath those trees as we're extending the street to the gun club for a future development.
Okay, but I'm just wondering about where it has the wet impact. There's an arrow toward lot 18, and it's circled around 19, 20, and 21, plus these trees down through here.
Bear with me a moment, let me catch up to you here. So it sounds like you're referring to a note on the plan that says,
The wet impact, is that?
Yep.
must be wetland impact. So I guess what we're seeing here, we have a delineated wetland, and then edges of that delineated wetland will see some kind of impact to the wetland.
So so what do you say? That you're going to move dirt around to impact the wetland, or is the wetland impacting that property?
The
I'm just
former.
concerned about the possibility of flooding on these homes.
I see. We do have strict stormwater requirements from both the city and the watershed, so the last thing we want to do is sell a $500,000 home to people and have it flood. So typically there's elevation differences we must have between our low floor and our low opening, like a walkout, and any kind of water body, and typically in great storm events, there has to be an overflow too, so that the water gets out before it actually floods a home.
Right.
This is pretty early in the stage of sketch plan, so we don't have all the engineering done. It was really just our engineer's estimate that to build it to this plan, there might be some impact to the edges of the wetland down there.
Okay,
Was that it, Judy?
well, I'm just looking at all this green that's in where these homes are listed, and I'm just wondering, what is this green? There's green over by 8, there's green over by 9.
Yeah, they can't see where you're pointing. The,
It's on the screen.
right, but they can't see where you're pointing.
Well, 8, there's 8, there's 9.
Maybe would be helpful.
I think,
I'm seeing 19, 20, 21, I'm not in the right spot.
she's referring to this right
I'm in the wrong spot entirely, so there you
Yeah,
go.
here, I'll come over. I just want to understand this, what is this?
Just different colored soil. So what this does, we did have a wetland
We can't hear.
delineation done on the property. So everything that's marked with that color is a delineated wetland.
hang on a second, folks. The people at home can't hear, so, and I don't even know if the camera would pick up where you did see it. Okay, so people saw where you were pointing, but if you could continue the discussion.
Good point, I'm sorry.
That's right.
So to back up a second, we did do an official wetland delineation of the entire property. So those are accurately displayed on the sketch plan. No engineering's been done to really understand the grades and exactly, what elevation everything's going to be. To answer your question, Councilmember Black, about the different color underlined, is just different. When you look at an aerial photo, sometimes you see different colors. So that area might be a low-lying area. It's not a delineated wetland, but it has a little different coloring because water has run over it.
Okay, so this is just preliminary. This layout may change.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, Judy?
No, I'll let us go.
Real quick, Paul, if we can go back to the overview, we've got to run water and sewer down County Road 11. Can you speak to, can you speak to that a little bit, where we're at and how we would get that down there?
Right, so I know a little bit about that process. Currently, we're looking at running utilities south. It's going to go, I don't know exactly where it's going to go yet because we haven't quite done the plans, but it has to go through this property, then along 11, down to the southern property. and then it'll loop back up to go north. That's both sewer and water.
So is the new well, is it going to be supporting this property? Or,
That is beyond my knowledge, unfortunately.
good answer.
But that's a valid question, because we don't even know where well 5 is going to be if we can put it in that area. And wasn't there also discussion about we're going to need a pump station down there?
There have been discussions. I don't know where those discussions have landed so far. Whether it's this property or further to the south. I think further to the south.
So part of the issue here is the cost related to all this, right? I don't have a problem with the project, but I think I'd like to know what the costs are to get all of that infrastructure down there for this development.
Right.
And my assumption is, at what point would you need, I assume you'd have to have this, all of the infrastructure in place to the development before you could have the first home obviously connected, right?
Yes, that's
But
right.
you could start with the initial, assuming this was approved, the initial grading, the layout, the initial infrastructure, you could put all that in?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so the timing would work out such as this. We'd start grading the property next May, utilities, streets would be in about August, July at the earliest, and then we start building our first model home. Nobody would occupy that first home until first of the year of 2021. So you've got about 14 months to get the sewer and water operational, really.
So what happens if the city doesn't have the sewer and water there by that time?
Yeah, well, we hate to think of those things, but the backup plan typically is, for the sewer in particular, your city engineer would guide them to plug up a manhole, let the wastewater back up a bit, and just pump it every week or two until the sewer's available.
A septic?
Like a septic, yeah.
But I think you'd want running water in your models,
Yeah, we would.
wouldn't,
Yeah, ideally,
No
in
toilets?
our development agreement, you want things from us, we need sewer and water from you, so that would be obviously something that's very important to us. We know you've been working on this for some years, we would want it there, yes.
Running water?
Kind of makes
We
sense.
need that?
People expect that these
Yeah.
days.
Dana, I don't think we're going to have the answers here tonight, but we're going to have to get some information, I think. Could you kind of collect that and as soon as possible, get that back to the council? All right. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we just don't have answers here, but clearly there's questions on timing and costs, which is where I was going with this. Do we have any idea, Paul or Dana, do you recall anything from Kara's, Kara?
Mayor, members of the council, we're going to let Kara respond.
Thank you. Any
Good
idea-
evening, Mayor and Council. I was hiding in the back. The City Council approved final design of the sewer and water extension. The plans are about 90% complete. We put everything on hold once the previous developer walked away from this site because the timing wasn't quite there. So we will be bringing that back to the City Council for approval to authorize bidding soon, in probably the next month or so, with updated cost estimates for you and an updated financing plan, which is being worked into your budget workshop and process that we'll be meeting on at the next meeting.
Okay, so
We have the information to get to,
Got
and
it.
it's in
Just-
the budget.
ballpark, do you know what this is going to cost?
4 million-ish?
All right, and we clearly don't have the cash, so we're going to have to bond for it.
Yeah.
so the 4 million, that's all the way down to,
The railroad tracks.
yeah, okay.
So the plan extends sewer from the Laketown neighborhood down to the railroad tracks. We'd be constructing a lift station and force main. That lift station then would be situated such that the property to the south of the property that Pulte's looking at would be ready to go for development. And then if anybody south of the tracks is starting to be interested in development, we'd be looking at how to get the sewer under the railroad tracks. Regarding the question of water, we could provide some level of water service in this area without well number 5, but we wouldn't want to get too far. So the number we've talked about is in that 100 home range. We're working with BAR to firm up what that is as we try to solve our water situation. But the schedule that we've been operating on is to mirror the landowner's desire to develop the schedule. So,
assuming the council approves it, you think that the construction in this infrastructure could be in place by their timeline when they wanted to start hooking up?
correct. That would be the intent. So we'd be bidding early in the year and starting construction as soon as road restrictions are lifted or before, depending on what frost does, but so that we'd be working in common. So they're also speaking with the developers for the Welter property because they all fit together in one beautiful puzzle that's just going to play out perfectly.
Got it.
Where
Thank
would the
you.
water come from for this 100 homes, and what's the cost?
So part of that utility extension project includes extending our city water down to the property. So even if we build new wells in this area, they'll still be connected to the existing water system so that we have storage and the other.
And this won't be wasted monies because it's
No.
all part of the loop.
Correct. Yep. All part of the plan.
So we recover the water with the core fees that we charge the developer. What's happening with the sewer then?
So both, we collect core fees and availability charges for both sewer and water. And so the analysis that we've been looking at is how many units will be needed and what is the time frame for those units to cover the cost of financing the project. And, you know, the numbers are not causing any big concern that
So
there's a big
the
gap.
development of the area is going to cover the cost.
Correct.
So we will pass those costs on to the developers as the houses are built.
Correct. As we collect those fees through both the development agreement and then at the time of building permit, some of them get collected at different points. Those fees are what's going to cover the cost of building this
So even
infrastructure.
though we're bonding, we're recovering the cost.
Correct, from the property that's being developed.
Just wanted to get that on the record.
Yes.
Yeah, good to know. Thank you for that. Different question. There were some discussions before about the annexation process and the fees related to that. If I remember right, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's now the landowner and the Lake Township that are negotiating. They decide for themselves. It's not the city.
Yeah, so the council hasn't approved the updated agreement yet, but city staff and township staff have been working on an updated annexation agreement that'll come back to you. But essentially, the annexation fee payment issue is going to reside between the landowner and the township, and the city wouldn't be a part of that.
Got it. So
Essentially.
I think I already know the answer to this, but I just want to confirm it. The Schmigs want to keep farming. Great. They're going to give us the right of way, or we're going to go through the County Road 11 right of way for the infrastructure. But when we annex a property like this, it clearly doesn't have to be contiguous to existing City of Victoria, right? You could get different parcels at different times and eventually fill it in, or
The way Pat had drafted the agreement that's going forward, we're just annexing the east side of the Schmieg's property where the utilities are going to go, but not the totality of their property. That'll stay in the township.
so we'll have a little sliver of Victoria that goes down and connects. So
Yeah.
it is. Does it?
And whether or not, I don't know whether we still needed that little sliver or not. He was still working through that, but the intent is to not annex Schmieg's property now.
So this is part of the right of way.
Yes. Yep. Right.
All right. Thank you. Council, other questions, comments? Go ahead.
This is regarding this park. We've got 9.6 acres shown on this drawing. We're incorporating parkland for the development to the south as well. Is that supposed to be included with this park?
Yes, I think short answer is yes.
Correct.
And are you working with that developer? And it looks like there's going to be a fairly lengthy possible boardwalk connection to this development to the south. Who's going to pay for that? Are we automatically tying them into making that connection?
Well, first of all, you have control over those decisions. We have met with the property owner to the south, the developer. And really, you determine where you want parks too. This seems like a logical place. It's got a lot of beauty with the steep slopes and the woods and the upland area. So apparently this was deemed the area that was desired by the city in your comp plan, and we tend to agree with it.
So the parks, this is me, I don't know whose question this is. We have 9.6 acres total parkland? Is that the flat part that's parks, or is it, how much is actually usable park
Yeah.
versus looking at it?
That's a great question. It's the full 9.6 acres is usable. So you want to save the steep slopes with the trees.
Right.
We don't get any credit for it.
So 10 acres, so it says there's going to be, I don't know, again, whose question it says. One of the problems we've had in the past is we're building our parks too small because they're for toddlers, and then pretty soon nobody's using them. So we need game fields, and it said there were game fields in here.
Yeah.
So is this big enough to have a softball or baseball field and soccer fields, or how is that going to work?
I think that's the intention, is to have a park of significance. So a park that has all the active recreation, fields.
Not just swings and stuff?
No, I think it's going to be much more substantial.
We typically see 1 to 2.5 acre parks for what is called a neighborhood park with playground, a little bit of open space. This is much bigger than that, so this can handle a variety of things. Typically, your comp plan would say, where you want specific types of, parks, and some are neighborhood, which are smaller, and some are more community parks, which are larger. Every city has their own terms, but I'm betting your comp plan shows something right here that is more substantial than the pocket park or neighborhood park.
We need bigger parks that we build more often instead of these little neighborhood jobs.
Or multi-use.
And we never get to the big parks.
Right.
This is a whole different subject I'm encroaching on.
That's good.
But it looks like if that's 9.6, that's actually usable acres.
It is.
This park, so.
That's excluding the wetlands and the slopes.
Right, so this looks hard to read. Does that say tennis?
Yeah, it says park facilities such as, looks like a baseball field here, a tennis court of some kind.
If I looked, I wouldn't have to ask all these questions.
I'm just going to add that the Park and Rec director isn't here tonight, but she has reviewed the concept and has noted that this is consistent with what they were looking for in the comprehensive plan. And I believe it's gone to Park and Rec probably way back in February when the previous applicant submitted. But the concept that's shown here is pretty consistent with what we would have saw back at the beginning of the year.
Right.
Can we zoom out for a second, Paul? Can you show the connections to you said you've been talking to the developer to the south of this property?
Yes.
Yeah, can you show those connections a little bit more, or is this, it doesn't go further down? Is that
Does
right?
not, unfortunately.
All right.
We have not talked to the developer to the south about trail connections. The real urgent matter is, of course, the sewer going down to the lift station, the water going there, and making sure it's the right alignment that works for them. So honestly, that's what we've been focusing on because that's the kind of the bigger issue at the moment.
Where is the lift station within your development?
No, it's the property to the south.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I do remember them talking about, they had to move some stuff around because of the wetlands, and they were going to go in together on the park. I remember them talking about that.
So this 9.6 acre park would serve as this community and the community to the south? Is that the intention?
Yes,
here?
and what it really means is for our development, we're giving you land instead of fees, and for the development to the south, they'll pay fees instead of land.
Got it. All right, got it.
Got
Thank
it.
you. Anything else to add, Paul?
No, sir.
Council, other questions, comments?
No, I'm good.
I have a general question. How significantly different is this than the original plans that we saw 4 or 5 months ago?
I would say they have some similarities, but also some enhancements as well. Definitely comes to circulation and traffic management. I think it's much more improved.
Yeah, if I could describe, when when this site plan came to us and it was owned by others, the changes we wanted to make it something that we felt comfortable with, two changes. One was we reversed the access point so that the northern one is the full access instead of the southern one. And the reason we did that is because for a lot of single-family home buyers, they don't prefer to drive into a main entrance with townhomes on both sides of the road.
Right.
So that was one of the changes we made. And the other one was to reduce the amount of townhomes a small amount, a modest amount, just to make us a little more comfortable. And those are really it. Other than that, we changed the alignment of the collector road as it approaches 11 at the city request. We added a couple street connections, but the whole boundary around the park is pretty much the same as what we had before. The townhome layout is a little bit different too, because of course we have a little different footprint, but it's very similar to what you saw in March.
Super.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. Oh, come on up.
Dave Gashtak, 10100 Victoria Drive, council members, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to address Judy's concern about the green area. What you're looking at is, you're looking at a picture right now.
Right.
So those green areas are basically where I have vegetation, where I'm baling. So on that lot 7 and
where
8.
you're baling?
Yeah,
Okay.
see, it's hillsides that come down, so I left it all grass and I bale it. So that's what you're seeing is grass is where the green areas are.
Okay,
So-
that's what I was wondering about, because when I'm looking at the picture on my screen, some of that looked like trees, so I was wondering.
There's one elm tree that's about that big in diameter,
Oh,
right in the middle of the waterway. I always got to go around.
Oh, okay.
But my wife won't let me cut it down.
Maybe
Well, we're
should
going to
let
keep
you-
that tree then.
Yeah, you're going to have to keep that. Thank you.
I saw another hand. Was there somebody else that wanted? Oh, okay.
Helping.
Yeah, just helping, okay. Any final comments?
No, I've got good feedback. Thank you for the thoughts you put into this and the feedback you gave, and we hope to be coming back real soon.
Super. Thank you very much for coming in.
You bet, thank you.
Council, any final comments on this before we move to the roundtable?
It's good to see you.
All right, good. Roundtable, I don't have any items here on the list. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss?
Mr. Mayor, Council, we could either discuss this evening or put it to the next meeting. But I think we need to look at our policy on open forums and understand exactly what our parameters are.
Okay. You guys want to discuss it?
I'm happy to have a discussion. I'm curious on what's a concern.
Yeah.
Well, the concern would be the amount of time we spent on the school board thing compared to some of the other pressing matters we had that we didn't even have on the agenda. And the school board was here for 15 or 20 minutes, and we entertained open forum for almost an hour.
So what do we have, eight speakers, I think?
I don't remember that.
So the meeting kind of got away from us, is my point, and there must be a better way of having our policy give us more structure so we can prevent that from happening.
So I'm fine talking about it. I think our policy should simply be if we have any residents that want to come in, as long as they're not repeating themselves, we should give them the time. I mean, we're here to listen to them. When we've had large groups before, I've asked if there's a couple of leaders of the group, and then they would speak, and then we would ask, is there anything new to add? And we'd let them speak. But I didn't think it was.
We had a choice to say that we were going to have a motion to recommend the school district's request.
Oh, like a resolution of some.
We're going to have a resolution. We did not take that route. We basically just said, this is informational only. So I can understand, like, City of Chaska actually had a resolution that said we recommend and endorse the,
Do we have the Chaska recommendation? Do we have that? I didn't think they endorsed it. What did they approve?
A resolution of support.
Community supports it, I think, or something?
They put support with it.
Oh, okay.
The city council
We didn't do that.
actually took a motion to support it,
Oh,
and we didn't do that, and we haven't done it since I've been on the council. But so we didn't support it, we basically were letting the school district put out some information. And yet, you know, we were in the middle of all this controversy.
My concern is the fact that we're not the body who's making this decision, and we have and I'm with Councilmember Vogt, that took up a lot of our time, and we didn't really have a say in any of it.
This isn't the venue for this. I don't believe.
You know what, anytime a resident wants to come in and address the council, District 112 has got a huge part of Victoria, right? I don't know, what is it, 70-80% of Victoria is in 112. Is that close, Paul?
Ballpark.
Ballpark, okay. I think we should take the approach that if any resident wants to come in for or against it, I would have let anybody speak. Now, that said, if you want to come up with a policy and we change that, fine, but I think the very essence of us being here as elected officials, if residents want to come in and speak to issues that are this important, and clearly there's a lot of people involved in this, I think we should give them the time to let them speak.
I don't disagree with you. I disagree that we let a meeting get that far out of hand. You know, we have other things that we could have put on the agenda and spent that time addressing.
Well,
I don't think the meeting went very long. I'm just looking at the agenda from that. We let the school board speak first, so we didn't keep them from speaking, and then.
in fact, we moved the
And then-
the schedule so they could speak because
Right.
they had a school board meeting that night.
So, and then the other things, I don't think our meeting went that long, but I think it is important to let the residents speak on any topic that they want to speak to.
yeah, the only thing I was a little concerned with was that they thought we had some sort of power, which we don't.
No, I think everybody understands. This is the school board's decision. The city council has no.
But they were
say in this.
asking us to, what was it? We said don't endorse them or something like that. They were asking us to make this
Make
decision.
a motion not to endorse them.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think we did the right thing, is we let people speak and they had their say, and we took no action whatsoever because it's not a city council decision,
right.
right? I don't know what else we would have done. I would,
In the consent agenda, we had there was a resolution just to encourage people to vote, and I think that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
And when we had, if we go back to when we had Marsh Lake Road and the chambers were packed,
Yeah,
we said, okay, well, let's get the leaders of the one position come up here and speak, and when they were done speaking, we said, okay, is there anybody that has something new to add, so we don't hear the same thing, 10 or 12 times. I didn't get the impression, I think it was 8 speakers, so I heard different things from all of those speakers. I didn't hear the same thing repeatedly. Had I heard that, I would have said, okay, we've heard that, let's have something new if you have other points to make. I didn't think it delayed us or did anything
Well,
inappropriate.
This is appropriate that we're having this discussion because I requested it and you're giving it to me. So I thank you for that. The only other comment I want to make is that there were a lot of people speaking that weren't from Victoria. And they were activists and they weren't citizens. And so, to me, that's what I'm getting at is where do we draw the line?
So that's happened historically in Victoria, that goes back quite a long time. The people have come in, they say their address, and if you look it up, not everybody's from Victoria.
Well, these people didn't even say they were from, there's a lot of people said I'm from Chanhassen.
Correct, and there was a lady, I think, from Edina that was familiar with it. So the council has traditionally in the past allowed anybody to speak, and when you have an issue like 112, I think this is a perfect example. Well, 112 covers basically all of, as the name implies, all of eastern Carver County. So Chanhassen, Chaska, Victoria, and Carver. Traditionally, we've always let them speak. I've never asked, are you a citizen of Victoria, or do you live in Victoria, or have a business in Victoria? Because we have the same thing when businesses owners may live elsewhere, but they have a business here, or they're thinking about business here, and we let them speak too. So I don't know how we would police that, and I don't know if we really have, there's an issue here, right? Because it doesn't happen that
I
often.
think the issue is, the issue we have with Marsh Lake Road, we say we have a 5-minute limit, we never impose it. So there's a
Correct.
problem here.
Well, but I've never cut anybody off that is either for or against a thing. And I have asked people at times, and Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have asked people at times, okay, you've gone over, let's speed it up. I would tend, I don't think it takes that much time, and I think we have a duty and, in fact, an obligation to people when they want to come in and speak. Yes, could I be more strict on the 5 minutes? Yeah, but I don't think it's been a burden for us or disrupted the meeting when they go over a little bit. Cindy gives me signs every now and then. What was it, an orange card or a red card? And some people do go over, and I kind of give them the symbol or say, okay, you need to wrap up. But I don't think it's.
Vouch for that one.
Yeah. But it's not just her. I've done it with others too. Yeah, I just don't see this as an issue because it's not that often. It's only when something big like Marsh Lake Road or the D112 referendum where we have that many speakers.
My concern is around the appropriate forum to express your concerns. So because we didn't have, we don't have any jurisdiction over this decision. And to have people coming and speaking at our podium that can very easily be pulled off the website and put on social media and used in ways that it is unintended, that's where I get the concern. This is not the right forum for that. And we had some very vocal folks come to the podium and state their position that could very easily be pulled off of our website and put on other social media.
Right,
and that's where my concern comes in, is to say, this, I don't disagree with our residents can come and tell us what they want to tell us, but this was not the right forum for that particular topic. And I'm just always concerned about, in today's day and age with social media and how things can be pulled and misrepresented, and we are in our council chambers talking about things that have to do with the school district,
Well, I go
the
back
school
to
board.
I go back to the same basic point. There were residents from Victoria here that also spoke, and we can't control what somebody does. This is a public meeting, and it's broadcast and videotape. We can't control what somebody does if they take copies of that and do something with it.
Correct, correct.
I don't want to
Giving them a
become.
forum.
Well, I don't want to become the thought police. We gave the forum for anybody that wanted to speak for whatever their position was, right? So I think what we're doing is the right thing by allowing people to speak. And again, the only time this has ever come up where there's been that many, where we've had a number of speakers, the only two in recent memory that I can think of is the Rolling Acres Road, which was clearly Victoria residents, and then this D112 thing. But it was only 8 speakers, and if it's roughly 5 minutes, I don't know what the actual time was. That's probably 40, 45 minutes of our time?
Pardon me, my concern isn't over the time. My concern is over the topic in the forum in which they were in. It's just, it's not our issue, is what that's my concern. And then that nervousness about using.
It implies the city council is involved in the school board policy making. And we're basically here for city business.
Right, but these are residents, and this is a big effect. They pay more in school taxes than they actually do even in city taxes. And if they want to come in and talk about it, I don't see why we tell them, no, that's the school board, you can't talk about that here, when it's such a big part of our community, right? Given the fact that this was a limited amount of time, we're probably not going to see it again, at least till the next referendum, assuming that somebody opposes it, right? So I don't know what the problem is we're solving. I would much rather err on the side of giving people the opportunity to speak as long as they're respectful. If you want me to tighten down on the time, I'm fine. I don't have a problem with that, right? I can be strict on that, but I don't think it's gone where it's really disrupted our meetings or stopped us from conducting our business.
The last thing I said was, I complained about the time. That was the last thing. The other 35 minutes of my talk has nothing to do with time.
Does anyone have concern about the school district themselves coming in to talk about the referendum. Is that somehow different?
Yeah, it's, you know,
Well, that's a separate question. too.
Well, I mean, I think it's tied together. I mean, if we say, you know, people, the school district can't come in and talk about the referendum because that's really not our business.
it's a valid point, right? And I would have let anybody, including people that were for the referendum, if they would have come up, I would have let them speak too. I mean, it's, right? I don't want to be,
My opinion would be the same on the people who are speaking for, is,
yeah.
I'm not sure this is the right forum to be.
Well, we've
Well-
had a good discussion.
So,
Okay.
fair enough. Thank you for bringing it up. All right.
I can't wait for my report.
Oh,
Is that what I was doing?
all right, the enthusiasm is so much. Here, let's skip the reports and go straight to adjournment. No, Bob, anything?
I can't wait for her report.
Dana?
I have nothing.
Deb?
I'm good, thank you.
Tom? Judy, rock and roll.
Okay, so we had the yard waste event this weekend, and I'm here to tell you, I was never so appreciated as I was being there, helping those people unload those leaves. Within the first hour, we had over 100 people. Over the weekend, we had over 400, and many of them came multiple times. Multiple. Here's pictures. Look,
Proof.
this is after the morning. That was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I started having them put stuff over here, because the dumpsters were getting full. This was all brush. We had to start expanding out. The leaves, we have them going all the way back, because I tried to keep them from getting too full.
The public can't see where you're pointing, by the way, but,
But they're up there.
yeah, they can't see where you're pointing at the picture.
Oh, I know, I'm sorry. And thank goodness for the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
I got them to come and help, and what little troopers they were. If you can see, this was the end of Sunday. If you can see in the dumpster, see the bags overflowing, there were 2 dumpsters. And look behind,
And that was just Victoria residents.
only Victoria
No
residents.
commercial?
No commercial. They all gave me their ID. They all, told me where they were from. We kept track of bags and loads. I have when they came, what day it was, whether it was the morning or the afternoon. The first morning, 127. The afternoon, 114. Sunday morning, I guess because of church, there were 60. But they were all truckloads. And then there was another 100 in the afternoon. I explained to them that 4 o'clock in the afternoon, none of them, they didn't line up. They all made sure that they were done. They thanked us profusely. There's another picture, and then there's another.
Oh, there is.
And even Officer Baker came, and those are the other 2. Those were the first ones. They were pretty tired. And after they finished jumping in the dumpsters with the leaves and everything, they came downtown to pass out candy. So I can tell you that I think that this was a very, very good experiment, and I do think we need to reconsider our options on this. They really want this. Oh, this was the traffic coming in. I set up cones. I had a little setup, a table, and
It's interesting to see the cars. That's why they had to nobody has trucks with it. So they have to do multiple trips.
well, there were a lot of trucks.
Were there
A lot of trucks, a lot of trailers.
A lot of trailers.
Yes. And I mean, there was one guy, he had a Jeep with a trailer, came up about 6 times.
So do you count him as 6 trips or 1 trip 6
I
times?
counted
Or
him-
one guy
no,
6
I-
times?
I kept him as 1. And then I doubled up. I knew who he was.
1 guy 6 times.
Yeah, so like one person from Savannah Valley came, they brought 12 bags, and then they came back and brought 4. I put them on the same line. So we're not,
Oh, wow.
see, Allegheny, 16 bags, and then they came back with, and brought 4 more bags.
So those numbers are actually individuals, and
Yeah.
even if the individual made multiple trips, it's still,
Yeah, it's like 10
yep.
and then 15. And I can tell you, if you look on your voting district map, they came from as far north as over here,
he's pointing to.
Zumbra.
Northern Victoria.
You might as well take all of the voting district 2 and about half of voting district 3. They even came from your neighborhood.
Why? We can't have leaves in our neighborhood?
I thought you had a service that did all that.
No, not
They
that I'm aware of.
were pretty excited about it. But I'm telling you, even Lake Town. So Lake Town North,
Here,
over to Lake Bridge,
for the camera.
over to Lake Bridge. I mean, this is something that we need to really do something about.
Well, the council, without objections, let's have the final weekend, and then ask staff to put a report together based on all of this, right, and bring it back.
Dina?
Sounds good.
Dana?
Mayor, members of the council, just real quick, we're planning to bring this back as part of your budget discussion. So, if we have the data, we can add it in as your discussion on the 12th, otherwise the 25th.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. At least we'll have some empirical data then.
And we can get, the people are willing to help. So I have volunteers for all of these times.
Right, and what troop was that? Boy Scout troop or Cub Scout? What was it?
Well, there were two of them. Hold on a second.
How many people was it total?
Over 400.
No. That helped.
Oh, I have 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the morning, 2.
So I guess my point about the,
16.
okay, so my point about that is to take those 16 people, convert that to staff time and understand, so we understand what the costs are. Because if,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it's
all part of the
wonderful,
empirical
it's
data.
wonderful if we can get volunteers, but I just don't know if that's sustainable for the rest of
Future?
our life. And then how much it costs us to get rid of that stuff in the end, because we have to do something with it. We
Well,
can't leave it there.
We have to figure something out, but in
Right.
the meantime, I would suggest that we at least do spring until we figure it out, because there's,
Well, this is report, so let's.
Yeah, okay.
We shouldn't be discussing this now, and by the way, we can just do s'mores, so just have a big s'mores party down there. We got plenty of fuel now, right? We'll bring this back as an agenda item and talk about it then, and make sure s'mores is one of the options.
okay.
Maybe not, huh?
I gave them, I had candy bars for they were great.
Because she brought it up, though, the council, if there's no objections, I'd like to ask each of you to come up with some ideas to do a thank you for the volunteers to our community, and give those suggestions to Dana, and I think we should do something nice for them. I'm not sure what it is, but think about it, and if you would, give your suggestions to Dana, we can talk about it at a later date. Tom, reports?
No report.
I have no report, so if there's nothing else, can I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Second, please.
Oh, second.
Discussion, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.